Parties joining me now to unpack the state of the city of Johannesburg and give their views on the election of Jolidee Matongo as the city's executive mayor. IFP Gauteng Secretary Alco Ngobese, former Joburg Mayor, Action SA leader Herman, and of course we have the ANC as well to reply to some of what's going to be said tonight. The regional secretary of the ANC in Johannesburg, Dada Morero, as part of this discussion tonight. You can also let us in on your views as the residents of the city of Johannesburg on 072-110-5584. Otherwise, you can tweet us at Newzroom 405. Gentlemen, good evening and thank you very much for your time tonight here on In Focus. Dada Morero, I will begin with you. It has happened previously in the African National Congress when you announced a mayoral candidate that there were protests when Togo Didiza, for example, was announced in the place of Hosiensu Ramokgopa. Talk to us about the process that was followed in electing this particular candidate and whether that process was well supported within the Johannesburg ANC. Dada, I don't know if you can hear me there. Dada, if you're there, if you can hear me. All right, he seems to not be hearing me very clearly there. We'll try and establish that connection with him. Herman, let's come to you then. I mean, you have expressed your reservation about this particular selection. There is a sense that this particular candidate will move away from the administration of the late Jeff Makubo, which was, in a sense, embroiled in a lot of allegations of corruption. Do you believe that this particular administration will be any different?
Good evening, Thabo, and good evening to the listeners. I'm afraid this is a continuation of the ANC corruption. I'm sure people of Johannesburg will remember Jolidee, the executive mayor now, the role he played in defending and spinning the corruption of the two previous ANC mayors. So I think it's going to really be business as usual, corruption, mismanagement, and cadre deployment. And that's what residents of Johannesburg must expect, nothing different.
Why would that be a fair assessment? I mean, you literally judging him on a track record of the previous mayor. He was not the mayor in office. He doesn't have a record of being involved in corrupt activity, well, as far as we know.
Well, I think what I'm saying is that, Thabo, just to remind residents of the city of Johannesburg, Mr. Matongo, the executive mayor, was the spin doctor for the two previous corrupt mayors. So obviously he defended their corruption. So how would he then be different? Because actually he's an expert in spinning and defending corruption and malfeasance.
Right, let's bring you Ngobese. The ANC clearly believes that this particular candidate should be the face of the country's economic hub. He has been elected unopposed at this particular stage. Does that mean opposition parties, particularly those who are in some form of coalition or working arrangement with the ANC, also believe that he is the right person for the job?
Well, Mr. Mdluli, thank you for having us. The IFP is very optimistic that we will work well with Mr. Matongo. We worked well when we were still an MMC for finance in the city of Johannesburg. We had a good working relationship between the two parties. So we are very optimistic that we are going to carry on where we left off, where the previous mayor left off, of course, to improve the lives of our people. We must remember that where there is IFP, there is stability. Whereas the IFP, the service delivery. So we are very much optimistic, Mr. Mdluli.
Yeah. Now, I mean, if you look at, for example, the issues that are still particularly with us in the city of Johannesburg, even the late mayor admitting to an extent to these issues, one of them is the precarious financial position of the city of Johannesburg. And one of the key priorities for this, the mayor, when he was giving the State of the City address in May, was to get those finances in order. One would say, well, the MMC was at the helm of the finances in a sense. I mean, if the city is in this precarious position, what confidence do we have in this mayor who was previously the MMC of Finance to get things back in order?
Well, the IFP believes that if you put the right systems in place with the relevant management which is skilled to run the city, we are optimistic that he will be able to go through. He will be assisted, of course, by his MMCs, members of Mayoral Committee that will be coming in from different political parties. Remember, the IFP is the kingmaker, are the kingmakers in the city of Johannesburg and elsewhere. So we are very much optimistic that working together with other parties as we are currently, we should be able to deliver the mandate of the GLU, which is a government of local unity.
Right. Dada Morero, I hope you can hear me now. I'm going to try and bring you in and come to you now. I was more interested in the party's vetting process that led to the agreement within the party that this is the right candidate for the city of Johannesburg.
Thank you very much, and good evening to your viewers. Certainly, the election of Comrade Jolidee Matongo would have been the right candidate that would have believed that he will be able to serve the city. And this is also confirmed by the national officials of the ANC who went through a process with Comrade Jolly, an interviewing process where he was tested, asked difficult questions to understand if he have the capacity to lead the city of Johannesburg. He was, of course, an MMC of Finance before, of which that portfolio gave him the opportunity to understand the city much better and what is needed for us to improve the quality of life of the residents of Johannesburg and also to improve the customer experience of all the account holders of the city of Johannesburg. Yep. So we believe he's the right man and he has the capacity to take the city forward.
So the president of the ANC saying that there will be a stringent vetting process of candidates or councillors in poor performing municipalities. I'm just wondering, what does that stringent process actually entail with respect to an executive mayor? What is the intensive evaluation? What sort of questions are put to the candidate? What sort of targets are set for the candidate?
Well, the vetting process, which was included an extensive and very intense interview, included questions around the service delivery model. It included issues around the conduct of an individual. It included issues around how do we manage and handle the public affairs, and what are the expectations of the National Executive Committee, especially the office bearers on candidates in relation to finances of municipalities. So he would have been asked quite critical questions around handling of finances. He would have been asked serious questions around service delivery and basically how he understands what are the functions of the municipality and what are the regulatory framework that governs the operations of municipalities. So those were some of the questions that he would have went through, and he needed to demonstrate that he has the necessary ability and skills. He would have also been vetted around his own academic qualifications and training. He would also be asked questions around his previous background, and he would have also been asked questions or vetted around any criminal activity or any allegations of corruptions that might have been raised in the past against him. So the NOB were satisfied that there were no issues of corruption or any allegations of wrongdoing that would have been raised against him in the past and currently, and therefore the national officials would have been quite satisfied that this is the man that will be able to take the city forward.
Right. I want to find out what is it that is in his leadership that makes you to believe that he is the right man to steer, because, of course, he has been in the city for 10 years in some form or shape, hasn't occupied this highest position up until this point. But let's take a break. When we come back, I'll give you an opportunity to respond to that, and I'll get, of course, the other political parties as well to weigh in. Let's hear your views tonight. 072-110-5584. Otherwise, you can tweet us at Newzroom 405. In Focus continues in a moment. Of the IFP, Action SA's Herman Mashabam as well as Dada Morero, the ANC, with us tonight. We are discussing the appointment of Jolidee Matongo as the executive mayor of the city of Johannesburg. So, Dada, I was saying before the break, I want to hear in real terms, not broad general terms as to, well, we interviewed him and he came out tops. I want to know exactly what are the boxes that he ticked that said to you, this is the type of leadership that you want for the city of Johannesburg. One, he is coming into a city, I suppose, in this current administration that has these allegations of corruption. We heard at the Commission of Inquiry into state capture, for example, that the late mayor could have received millions and so forth from EOH, and as he was then the treasurer of the ANC in Johannesburg. So these are some of the allegations that he needs to come in and deal with. But two, there's also reports of decline in as far as service delivery is concerned in the city. These are tough situations that the new leadership would need to deal with. What is it about his leadership that ticked all the right boxes?
Well, first it would be his ability to consult broadly with the collective, his ability to make and take decisions. So in essence, we're talking of a decisive individual who has committed himself to service of the people of Johannesburg, meaning that he would sacrifice everything to ensure that he's able to provide the much needed services to our communities. Now I'm talking of a man who, when called upon to serve, he will give everything to service. A man who has taken a view in his life that his life does not belong to himself and his family, but belongs to the people of South Africa. And in so doing, it means he will do everything, including ensuring that he consults directly with communities on the ground. He will be taking services directly to communities. And one of his biggest commitments is to bring on board communities in Johannesburg to participate actively in the service delivery or the economy of service delivery through ensuring that he establishes cooperatives so that entrepreneurs on the ground can participate in the economy of service delivery. And one of the key things he has then committed himself in doing today, or in fact during the interviews with the National Executive Committee, was to remain ethical in his leadership, to ensure that any signs of corruption in his administration and in his collective leadership, he deals with it decisively without thinking twice. Yeah. Now, we are confident that this is the right guy, that over and above, he will be able to change the image of the ANC in society. So we are very much confident that he is, therefore, the right guy for the job.
What do you make of the likes of Action SA, who criticize him for his association with the predecessor?
Look, Action SA is an organization formed recently. The agenda is simple. they would attack the ANC at any given time, but they have no ability to provide solutions on how we take the city forward and how do we build and transform society. All they want is just for them to be in the seat of government.
Yeah.
They have no clue what it also means to engage in transformation of society. So, Mashaba...
That's not necessarily true, because Herman Mashaba has been an executive mayor in the city of Johannesburg, so he knows what it means to be in that chair.
A mayor who has messed up the city quite extensively, and he almost collapsed the finances of the city at the point where he was governing, or the mayor of the city. City Power, which used to be a very stable organization, was sitting at an overdraft of 2 billion, something that he cannot deny and something that he himself admitted to, precisely because he had no ability to govern the city collectively with the leadership. In fact, everyone who worked under Mashabam will tell you that more than anything, they were all frightened of him, to an extent that they were not able to even provide services to the city of Johannesburg, because the man lacks the simple understanding of what leadership means. So there's nothing that we can point to and say Mashaba has delivered in the city of Johannesburg. In fact, the public protector found him wanting on quite a number of issues, including an irregular appointment of senior managers who he employed without following proper procedure. He was found wanting on dismissals of a number of officials in the city. He was found wanting by the public protector, something that the former mayor, the late mayor, Jeff, had to deal with all issues of litigation from people who were fired unprocedurally.
Well, look, I mean, I was bringing the question of Herman Mashaba because he was in the city. It's not really his record that is in question today, because he's not coming into the seat. But it's okay, I'll allow you to raise those issues, because he has, of course, thrown in the first jab at the incoming executive mayor. Mayor Mashaba, this is former Mayor Mashaba. This is a leader who is decisive, committed to broad consultation, unlike what you had as a mayor. It seems you were a bit dictatorial and people were afraid of you.
Well, Thabo, is because I had no time for corruption. I had no time for mediocre. That's why I'm hailed as the only mayor in this country who has fired more ANC cadres in the 3 years of my administration than anyone, all the ANC people combined. And I can assure residents of the city of Johannesburg that I've got unfinished business. That's why I've thrown my hat in the ring to be the mayoral candidate for Action SA, so that I can continue on the journey. Given the mandate by the people of the city of Johannesburg, if ANC is under impression I was brutal the first time around, let me wait for them to really see. I mean, the first thing I will do, over and above the skills audit, I'll do the lifestyle audit. That's something that I did not really get an opportunity to do, because you have all these corrupt officials, people earning 15,000 rands a month, but living in a 5-6 million rand housing estate, and all these issues. I mean, you ask yourself, how do they happen? And I think also, first time around, never had the cooperation of our law enforcement agencies. This time around, we'll use the courts to really get the remedy, because we cannot allow ANC corruption to continue unabated. And the reason why I'm raising this matter with the current executive mayor appointed or elected today is because for the 10 years, starting from the previous mayor and the one before, he was a spin doctor. So he knows all the corruption that's been happening in the city of Johannesburg. And as far as As for the finances of the city of Johannesburg, fortunate enough, Thabo, the evidence is there. Please ask the National Treasury. Please ask Moody's. Please ask the AG, because I did a final report to really look at the state in which I left the city of Johannesburg. You don't have to really ask me. I'm asking you. Ask them to the report that I gave them, which they've approved, in terms of how the financial situation, sound financial situation, I left the city of Johannesburg. I did not leave the city because of any other thing than the differences I had with the DA when they started talking to a corrupt ANC government, and I did not want to really be associated with corrupt people.
Let's look at the finances of the city. They are somewhat in a precarious position. If we break it down to some of the 6 priorities that the administration of late Jeff Makubo, would have taken, one of the issues was to review the rates and rebates on municipal services and charges that would, in a way, be reduced in order to expand the social package program. Dada, is this, of course, in the spirit of broad consultation, something that the ANC would support and agree to as a way to improve the finances, I suppose, of the residents? But will this, in a sense, improve the bottom line of the city?
Well, thank you for the opportunity once again. And I think it should be understood that part of the programs that we have brought in, including the debt rehabilitation, is to also take into account the stressed economic situations that majority of our citizens and residents found themselves in. Now, from time to time, it becomes important that a city like Johannesburg considers the interests of its residents who are ratepayers, and should be able from time to time award rebates for particular issues. It could be pensioners, it could be as a result of those that are consistently paying, so that at least you continue to incentivize those ratepayers. But that on its own, the city should ensure that before we make such decision, we are able to say at this stage our financial position will be able to absorb some of those rebates that we may have passed to the residents and ratepayers. So those decisions do not just come uninformed. But it's also important to do note that whilst the Action SA believes that they would have done a good job, whilst Mashabam was the mayor of the DA and consistently accuses the ANC of a relationship with the DA, which has never happened. The ANC has never been in any relationship whatsoever with the DA. The Democratic Alliance remains the strategic opponent of the ANC. So for him to claim that relationship between the two, and in fact it goes further to say it's a corrupt relationship, brings a very serious questions on our side as the ANC, that the man who was deep in the leadership of the DA and a member of the Federal Council suggests that there is corruption between the ANC and the DA. He's therefore saying, as a leader of the DA then, he was a corrupt person. So it really confuses people to listen to a man who only speaks corruption. He never speaks on how are we going to address issues of unemployment, issues of service delivery, and issues of improving the quality of life.
I want to talk about that high impact service delivery model in a moment, Dada, but I've got to take a break, and I want Alco Ngobese to weigh in as well on this strategy of rebates and 50% debt written off, and whether that will have any impact on the bottom line of the city. Let's get your views tonight. 072-110-5584. Tweet us at Newzroom 405. In Focus continues in a moment. The new executive mayor of the city of Johannesburg is Jolidee Matongo. And of course, we're discussing some of the intricacies of the leadership of Jolidee Matongo, but also what he is having to deal with as he comes into office. Alco, Ngobese, Herman, Mashabam, and Dada Morero with us tonight. Babu Ngobese, let's bring you in here on the question of the finances of the city. I mean, as a member of council, do you think a strategy of rebates and discount and debt writing off and so on and so forth would serve best to the city as far as the bottom line? And we know in a time of a COVID, people are not well off in any case as far as the collection of revenue. But giving rebates and writing off debt, will that improve the city's balance sheet?
Well, indeed, Mr. Mdluli, it will assist indeed. Remember, most of the people are now jobless after the pandemic. People cannot afford to pay some of the services that were paying previously. So any help, any assistance from the municipality, it should assist our community, especially the poorest of the poor. We think we need more of the cuts and discount so that our people are able to access to the services of the city. Services like water and sanitation, electricity. People are out of jobs, so really any help will assist at this point in time.
Yeah. If the city is now collecting less on services like water and electricity, where will the city be making the bulk of the money that it requires for service delivery?
Well, we need to, the city has to, like apply to the National Treasury for assistance and stuff like that. But when people are out of jobs, really there's nothing much that you can do. It's not only the city of Johannesburg. If you look at all other metros as well, like the city of Ekurhuleni and the city of Tshwane, they are also battling with regards to revenue collection because of the pandemic that all of us are experiencing currently. So the government has to weigh in, the national government has to weigh in here to ensure that service delivery is not compromised, especially to the poorest of the poor.
Yeah, that, I mean, the economy, it's a known fact, shrunk from 1.1 trillion in 2019 to about 80.9 billion in 2021 because of the effects of COVID-19. So naturally, the city of Johannesburg will also be hit by that. So it would require someone with innovative and smart ideas to come in and say, where will we be getting this money? Yes, we're giving relief, a good relief package, a good relief program. So Dada, where is that money going to be coming from, according to Jolidee Matongo?
Well, thanks. Our task, and especially of the newly elected executive mayor, would be one to look at innovation. And then innovation will begin to help us on what we will be able to raise funds on or balance what we already have. And that will include savings around energy issues, savings around water issues, by adopting some of the blue economy strategies for us to be able to respond to the current crisis. Reality is, of course, the pandemic has affected us quite extensively, which would mean for us to recover. There are a lot of innovations that we need to bring on board, including, amongst others, our ability to raise bonds in the market. Also noting that municipalities have been downgraded, but we need to bring innovation to convince the investors and the financial markets that we are a leadership that is innovative and very productive and proactive. And we believe that what we have presented to the market through the Growth and Development Strategy 2030 should be able to convince investors and the market that we do indeed have the ability to can transform and survive even within this current economic condition. conditions. So we are focused at ensuring that we can respond, we can deal with economic recovery. And we believe that Jolly is the right man to do so. We are there to support him as a collective to ensure that we are able to achieve this thing in a short possible space of time.
Yeah.
We are not convinced otherwise that Mashabam will have the ability to do so. In fact, he remains one of the corrupt mayors who even took 11 million to his own NGO, which has done nothing for the city, and for him to claim that the Auditor General report suggests that he has not done wrong. We will present that evidence, the report to you, and you will see what the Auditor General had flagged as the weaknesses of the Mashabam administration.
Mitigating the impact of COVID-19, Herman Mashaba, the ANC suggesting rebates and debt rehabilitation program and expanding the social package program, but also in as far as the transformation of the city's economy and getting that much needed revenue, talking about savings in the energy and the water sectors, the blue economy strategies, and talking about probably raising bonds in the market, something that they say, well, you might not have the innovation and the ideas to bring forth.
Those are the kind of plans that would obviously, I think, destroy the city even further. You can imagine you are collecting less revenue and then you're going to go into the markets to go and borrow money in a country that is regarded as junk. So you can imagine going out into the market as a South African government, it costs more money because South Africa, as we speak, is unable to raise money in the normal financial markets. You've got to go to Bomashonisa because of, obviously, our status as junk created by the ANC government. What you need to do when you are faced with this type of challenge is to, first of all, deal with professional public service. Do away with these cadres. Put in professional South Africans who can run this government, who have really been sidelined all this time. Do away, close the tap on corruption, because corruption steals public monies. Just in the 3 years as an executive mayor of the city of Johannesburg, 35 billion rands of corruption that still needs to really be investigated by law enforcement agencies. We're going to imagine what you can do with that kind of money. What you do, fast-track inner city rejuvenation project where you get the private sector to invest in the city. You remember when I was a mayor, in the 3 years under a difficult coalition arrangement, managed to award 154 of the buildings to the private sector to build affordable accommodation for our people and students, yielding just over 20,000 the low-cost accommodation. But unfortunately, up to now, that program, as soon as I left, it stopped. And you ask yourself, but these contracts were already awarded. What has actually stopped the current government from actually allowing the private sector to have built? Because the private sector would have already, most of those buildings would already be completed by now. You know, imagine how many jobs were supposed to have been created through that program. Because when I remember when I was the mayor, I committed to the people of Johannesburg that I will ensure that we give a minimum of 100 buildings to the private sector to build affordable accommodation. And this brings money. We must be bold enough, Tabos and people of South Africa. We need to deal with this whole issue of undocumented foreign nationals. They are a drain on our economy and our limited resources. So we need to hold Home Affairs accountable to ensure that people who are in South Africa are in South Africa legally. Because as the city of Johannesburg, when we put together a budget, we put together a budget on the basis of South Africans and people who are in our country legally. But all of a sudden, you get thousands, even, I don't know, millions, because Home Affairs is not prepared to give us the numbers of foreign nationals who are in this country from all over the world in this country legally. So we need to hold them accountable, because once you can deal with the situation, you can imagine how much resources you can unleash to provide services to South Africans. And that's something that we must not be apologetic about this. Anyone who's in this country illegally and they don't qualify to be here, we must send them back to their own countries. They can't outsource their problems to South Africa when we have our own people suffering. So we need to do away with vanity projects. You know, the other day I looked at the budget that they passed in May. The city of Johannesburg wanting to open a radio station. My goodness, I'm saying these people are crazy. This is a vanity project. We've got so much free media, private and community radio stations. This government of ANC now wants another, over and above their normal propaganda. Now they want to come up with another propaganda. That money should really be going towards going to give dignity to our people by making sure that you don't have potholes, you build the houses for our people and so forth. You open a radio station. This is just to give you an example that you actually use resources for the wrong reasons because you want to lie to people. You see, once you are trained by the Soviet Union, you come out with programs that even the Soviet Union themselves forgot in 1989 when they collapsed. Now you want to practice such a propaganda in this country. And unfortunately, in the process, you lose money that's supposed to go towards service delivery. And that's
all right. Let's take a break. We'll come back and get a response to those 4 issues that you are raising there from the other panel. Then we'll touch on this question of high-impact service delivery. Alco, Ngobese, Herman, Mashabam, Dada, Morero with us tonight. Interesting views being raised. Let's hear yours on 072-110-5584. Tweet us at Newzroom 405. Tonight on Newzroom Afrika, channel 405, in conversation with the IFP, Action SA, as well as the ANC. The conversation around the appointment of the new executive mayor and some of what is required in the city of Johannesburg to turn around and transform this economy that has been battered by the coronavirus pandemic. Before the break, Alco, Ngobese, some issues being raised by Herman Mashabam. You cut away the revenue, then you need to come up with some innovation. But not only that, close the tabs on corruption. Not only that, get rid of vanity projects. Not only that, deal with the situation of professionalizing the public sector. What do you make of those 4 or so suggestions?
Well, I think the IFP agrees with those suggestions. We don't have a problem at all. But the fact of that, the IFP is very strong on corruption. We don't tolerate corruption at all, as we all know. Any sign of or any smell of corruption from our side, we are dismissed. That's an IFP that we all know. Employing professionals to do qualified jobs, we believe in that. We don't believe in a catered deployment. We want people to be employed based on their skills and their know-how. As far as the foreign nationals are concerned, we are saying, as an IFP, undocumented foreigners don't belong to this country. They must go back where they come from, and we are very clear on that. We don't speak from both sides of our mouths. We are very clear on that. So we agree with some of the sentiments that were raised by the previous speaker, Mr. Mhloli. Thank you.
Dada, the questions being raised around the ANC tonight. One is, of course, the issue of cadre deployment and not recognizing professionals to run the city. Number 2 is the ANC's preoccupation with vanity projects, according to Herman Mashabam, eating up at the city's budget. And, of course, the question of foreign nationals who are unaccounted for when the budget is set, and the ANC at a national level, I suppose, not being held accountable as far as knowing exactly the numbers of foreign nationals who are undocumented and dealing with that decisively.
Well, we dealing with the person who just speaks, but let's help him. We had no projects, created at least 8,000 jobs, but the intention was over and above creating jobs, but creating entrepreneurs who will participate actively in the economy of service delivery. Something that he never understood, though he claimed to be a supporter of small business. But he then demonstrated that he has no ability to think beyond deals that are made in boardrooms. He speaks about 150 buildings, which he says should have been fixed by now and all sorts of things. In fact, that process of awarding those buildings was in itself discriminatory to small business, in the sense that one of the criteria that he himself put in place was a balance sheet that majority of small black business could not even demonstrate the ability of a balance sheet that went at least into 100 million. Now, he knew that by making noise about these buildings, he will then be bringing his chommies, who has the necessary capital and the necessary balance sheet to take over those buildings. So he shouldn't lie and believe or make us believe that he was intended to supporting small business. He has no ability whatsoever to think about transformation of the economy. He cannot continue to accuse the ANC of employing corrupt people. Let's go back to his administration when he insisted on employing people who could not perform in interviews, nor their profiles and CVs could not convince the interviewing panel that those people had capacity. For example, he employed a chief of police called Mr. Tembe, who in fact came number 5 after everybody has scored those that they were interviewed, and he insisted on his appointment. Mr. Tembe, who left under a dark cloud once the ANC coalition took over, because he has involved in quite serious corrupt activities at JMPD. Now, Mashabam wants to tell us of cadre deployment as what kills the ANC. In fact, people that the ANC consistently deployed in the city of Johannesburg, who applied for jobs and went through vigorous processes of interviewing, assessment, psychometric, and so on and so on, were professionals with high ethical conduct. So he cannot come and suggest that we were just involved in appointing just corrupt personnel in the city. That would not be true.
So Dada, I'm going to let you continue in a moment, but I want to just clear that. So you are completely denying the fact that the firing of the JMPD head, Tembe, was due to political interference?
No, there was no interference. The man was involved in a lot of wrongdoing. In fact, he chose to run away, and he then asked to settle and asked the city that he want to leave. And the public protector report is there, and it confirms that his appointment was irregular, and the man was not fit for the job. And that's the man brought in the city by Herman Mashabam. He can't deny it. He can't deny it. So this attitude of not presenting what he offers for the residents of Johannesburg, it's really not helping. All what he does is corruption, corruption, corruption. There's nothing that is offering. Yeah. How is he going to respond to the challenges of joblessness, the challenges of urbanization that is growing so fast in the city of Johannesburg? In fact, under his administration, Johannesburg moved from 180 informal settlements to 320 informal settlements that we're sitting with now, that we need to address. And those settlements are now demanding services, and those services